Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's episode is I Have Thoughts, Structuring Yourself. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the one who makes Writing for Screens a channel here on YouTube to try and teach screenwriting, whether that is TV, web series, movies, anything for a screen. I am trying to put together some lessons that I learned in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. On my way out of the industry, I thought I would leave behind some of these lessons which I have put into this channel. Here's a screen grab of the channel main page, and if you'll see down at the bottom, there are some playlists. These playlists, let me show you closer. Each one of them is a little 10-minute video. Then there's these longer live streams, but these first three playlists have 10-minute videos on topics that I think are useful. For instance, genre, dialogue, character, dramatic action, all sorts of stuff like that. There's about 50 of them now. And in these first three playlists, there's Screenwriting Essentials, is the name of the first one, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. Those three playlists have, honestly, almost everything I have to teach you. I've tried to boil down what I think about these topics into little 10-minute lessons with lots of little insights, tools, and skills, because I truly believe there is no one right way to write. There is no one right thing to write. There is no right or wrong. There is just what you are trying to do with who you are and what you want to do. And that is for you to figure out. So I'm just trying to give you some tools, some skills, some insights to do that for yourself. Figure it out for yourself. I'm just trying to give you some tips from that I had to figure out in a 25-year career, try and teach myself. I would make a lot of notes, and I thought, oh, these would actually be helpful to other people. Here they are. Then I also do these live streams. These live streams are every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. That's where I am, and that's where we are right now. Each one is on a different topic. Today's topic, structuring yourself. And I'll explain what that means in just a minute. But first, I'm going to say hello to a bunch of people who have come on because I got a bunch of people here. Hey, hello, Sonia. Hello, Helene. Hello, Philippe. I don't think I've met you before. Hello, Nathan and Doreen and Jean and R. Fung. Hi, I have got your email, R. Fung. I just haven't answered it yet. I look younger. It's a funny old world that way. Okay, so let's get to this topic, structure yourself, structuring yourself. Here's what I want to talk about. And there's going to be lots of time for AMA here. So let me just get this topic done, talk about this idea. It's been on my mind. A lot of people ask questions that lead into this basic idea, which is one of the biggest, hardest things about being a writer, about being an artist, is having to structure your time, your work process, your life, and all of the other things that everyone teaches. They really won't happen. Like you can know all the dialogue and structural tricks in the world. You won't be able to do them if you can't figure out how to get your work done with a work process. And so the way I look at it is projects, problems with projects, artistic issues, they're going to come and go. You're going to approach them. You're going to try and solve them. You're going to move on to a new thing. The process is the same. It's yours every day. You need this process, and nobody talks about how important this is above everything else. People tend to think that if you're doing work you love, or if you're lucky enough that you're a full-time writer and you're the boss, you have nothing but time to do what you want, that you won't it's like, great, I'll get my writing done. It seems very ideal to be the one who gets to decide what you're going to write and when you're going to write and how you're going to write. But in fact, that's actually one of the hardest things about writing, okay? It is really difficult. It took me years to get comfortable with the idea of having a process and owning this process. One of the biggest problems is this is not taught. Nobody talks about this. They're like, go write something. I say that. They say, like, okay, here's your writing assignment, or this is the perfect structure for you to write in. But they don't say how hard it is to figure out when you write. How much do you write? Do you write until you burn out? Do you write a certain amount of words? Do you write a certain amount of hours? This is really hard to figure out. Most people have a really hard time with it. And the main thing about it that no one tells you is there is no one to tell you how to do it. You have to choose this. You have to figure out, you have to set your own values and get to know your own process and your own self and your own situation. And you have to learn how to discipline yourself. And this word discipline, people tend to think that discipline means like scolding or punishing or somehow like, restricting. Discipline is not that. Discipline means giving yourself a system, a way, a path to follow, a process to follow. That's what discipline is. Actually, discipline becomes one of the most pleasing things. It's not like you did something wrong and you have to be disciplined. It means you have a way to do things, and by following that way, you can figure out how to do it. You can figure out the problem that you're facing with each day's work, because you're not trying to figure out, am I doing it the right way? Is this the right time? I ought to be doing it longer. I ought to be doing it, in a cafe, or I ought to be doing it all by myself. People have different ways to do it. Only you can figure out your process. And nobody talks about how much that's scary. It's scary to say, am I doing this right? Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? Am I doing it the right way? Okay? The worst thing about this is that you have to fit your structure, how you work. Like, does your brain work that it takes you a long time to ramp up to your work? Or do you do really, really good for the first 15, 20 minutes and then burn out? I tend to do that. Whatever it is that you work like, I'm a very early morning person. I do my best work in the morning. 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, evenings, I'm useless. Getting used to that and then fitting that into the world that you actually live in. Like, you could be a morning person, but you only have time but to yourself at night. You could be a person who works really well at night, but you have a roommate and they can't stand for you to have the light on. Whatever it is, you've got to be really, really honest with yourself about how you work. And then you have to figure out how your world works and how you can fit that together. That is really, really the first job, the most important thing about being a writer. Because every other problem, like how am I going to solve this character, that only happens if you've got your time and your place and your way of working. And like I said, I cannot tell you, the only way that you can figure this out is by looking for yourself. Don't look to, such and such a writer, he writes for 4 hours a day and then he has a cup of tea. Well, maybe you don't like tea, and maybe you do better working for an hour and then taking a walk. Everybody has their own way, and the first thing you have to do is recognize that no matter how anyone else does it, the way you do it that feels good, that that's productive for you, that's what you have to start to look at. The hardest thing is recognizing that the feeling, to say what feels good, because you're always thinking, am I doing it right? Am I doing enough? Am I doing it in whatever way I'm supposed to? So you don't actually know your own feelings. The way to pay attention is when you are working, when does it feel right and when does it not feel right? You can pay attention to that and you can get good at that. You and only you will know. If you are facing things and they are working right, say to yourself, was that because I was writing by hand, or was that because I was dictating? Was that because I was working in the morning, or was that because I was working after vigorous exercise? Only you can figure this out, and it is the most important thing you need to know in order to do all the other things, okay? The hard thing about art is that you and you alone have to choose your path for yourself. No one can tell you if you're getting it right. And you can't really ask anyone. Okay. And one of the hardest things is everyone will give you an opinion. Why are you doing it that way? Why don't you do it this way? This is the way I do it. Why don't you do it the way I do it? This is the way Beethoven did it. Why don't you do? All of that is irrelevant. None of it matters. Okay. What matters is, are you getting a good flow done for yourself under your circumstances? You may have a lot of things. You may have 2 jobs and some kids, and you have to walk the dog. And if you get 15 minutes a day done, that's your best. That's cool. That is absolutely all right. If you find that on a day when you have freedom, for some reason, no one's bothering you and you have nothing to do, how much does that mean that you have to work 24 hours? No, you can't. I mean, some people do. Some people work 24 hours and then they have a break and they don't work again for 2 weeks. But whatever is healthy, you all know when you feel healthy, not when you feel impressive, not when you feel like you've broken some barrier, when you feel, I could do this again and feel good. That's the question. Could you keep doing this for the rest of your life and feel good about the rest of your life? When you get done, do you feel, I can now face the rest of my day, or I can get through my day because I'm going to have this? Whatever works for you that feels like it works together with your reality, that is what you have to do. And people don't talk about that. They say, be disciplined, work, write 4,000 words a day or 200 words a day. Maybe you do well with, I know somebody who does word count. I must get my words done. Cool. Other people, I must do my time. Cool. Whatever it is that suits you, that helps you, is okay. Because you can't measure creative work. There is no measure for how much you're supposed to do. Sometimes you do very, very few words, but the invention involved is brilliant. And that's what you needed to get done that day. Even if it's just an idea that you don't even write down. Sometimes that's all you get. That's okay. The other feeling is that you're not allowed to stop. This is a very, very unhealthy thought. Okay? You are supposed to stop. You are supposed to stop now and then. That is okay. So the other thing is that the work itself is unstructured, because when you look at a blank page, it's not like, I'm going to take these 6 steps and I'll be done. You're looking at a blank, you're looking at emptiness, you're looking at an undecided thing, and that feels like you can't tell how long it's going to take. Sometimes you get it like that, and sometimes it takes weeks to fill that one page. There is no right or wrong way, and the feeling of I ought to, I should, that's very, very, very destructive. And it's one of the reasons that so many writers reach for formula. They say, I must do this page count, or I must fit this structure, or I must fit this genre requirement, whatever it is. Then you feel like you're not facing a blank page. You're facing just a formula expectation. How am I going to get the 6 famous turns or the low points or all these other things that people teach you as the solution to your writing problem? And that's okay. I understand why you would grasp that and say, now I don't have to be afraid of the emptiness. But the main thing that I need to tell you is, whatever this is, it is going to take a while for you to strengthen this ability. It's not easy. It's not natural. What you need to do is become aware that you need to figure out your process and then experiment and explore and practice it. Okay? A lot of the things you're hearing me say now, you've heard me say before, because they're the most important ones I know. Okay? Recognize the problem, which is that you need to get used to how your particular process works. You have to pay attention to it. You have to practice it. You have to experiment, try different ways. And then when you get it set, when you say, this works, that doesn't, start to make that a pattern of small steps. Okay. All right. So that is the main thing I want to tell you. There are people who will tell you that there's a right way or a wrong way, or that there's a lot of optimization talk. There's a lot of tech talk about like, oh, well, if you just add 6 seconds a day at the end of 6 weeks, you'll have this much more done. That kind of stuff doesn't respect the creative process, okay? That is just math trying to solve a non-math problem, okay? My point here for you is take the problem seriously. Understand that the hard thing for you to do is you and you alone have to figure out your way of doing it, okay? You have to decide, is it page numbers? Is it hours? Is it whatever it is that you can find productive? Work from that. And don't worry if it doesn't seem like what people are saying is right or wrong. That is the key thing, to recognize that it's not easy. It is not easy to be an artist, to work with emptiness in empty time in your own way. That's very scary, and you tend to not, that feeling of fear blocks you from recognizing when you're doing it right. And you have to start to relax and say, I am allowed to not know this. I need to pay attention to what's working and what's not, and go with that. Okay, gonna look at some comments because there's been a bunch of them. Okay, hi Hyperabs and Ricky. Okay, I am sorry that my live stream clashes with the soccer game. That's it. You can always watch the live stream later, you know, it's not a big deal. Hi, Michael. Yeah, good. FAA says, I'm sorry, I keep thinking of Federal Aviation Authority. Works in the morning. Yeah, I have gotten very used to, I would rather get up at 4 a.m. and do my work before, when I had a full-time 9-to-5 job, that's what I would do. I'd get up at 4 a.m, work a little before work. Okay. Our fund does his best work at 5 a.m. Can't wake up because I have class until 10 p.m. That is hard. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No matter what you do, you have a reality. Okay. People think, oh, if only I had all day, every day free. I promise you, you will still run into realities that make it difficult. So work with the reality you have, even if that is, I'm going to do a little bit now and then by dictating it while I'm taking a walk through the park. You know, whatever it is that works for you. We go through life having people tell us what to do. Kierkegaard said, we don't know how to handle our freedom. Kierkegaard is right. Kierkegaard is right. Okay. Angeli is a late night writer. Yeah, I have a couple of friends like that. It also depends on the excitement of the specific project. Yes, but the belief that you need to be excited actually tends to make you constantly choosing things for the excitement value instead of the other values. There may be other values that are more valuable, but you keep thinking, at least I do, oh, this one's more exciting. So if you don't finish things, or you go for something that seems new to you, even though you actually should be working on something that's a little less, envelope pushing, for instance. I would love to do it right in the morning if I could do it. My work day starts at 6 a.m. Yeah. Schedule on the weekends and use work weekdays for short bursts. You see, Sonia exactly has figured out, considering the reality of her work schedule, how she can get stuff done when it's not ideal for her. I get that. I have been there. I have had times when I had 9-to-5 jobs and I had to find ways to sneak my work in during the work day. Phil says, interestingly, when my goal is to write for an hour, I end up doing way more. Getting started. That is so true. That is really, really true. The most important thing is showing up, opening the document, getting started. You will be surprised how much you can get done once you get into that. Okay. Arfang is sorry about the soccer game. Don't worry about it. So first of all, I wouldn't know. You could be watching, you could be doing any number of things while I'm talking. I don't know. It's okay. Do good short story scripts have to have some kind of hope at the end? No. There is no there is no value of good or bad to happy or sad endings or grim or optimistic visions of humanity. You may feel that there are certain people who are like, I only want to write things that end with a hopeful note. Great, that's your good. It is not like there's an actual absolute, short scripts should have hope. Definitely not. Good scripts are things that have I was about to say have a clear, strong ending, but the truth is some of them don't. Some of them sort of end with a mystifying ambiguity. There's no, this is the right way to do it. The answer is, what do you think, Madco? Do you want to write a script that has hope at the end? Also, why make it all? Why say every script has to do this, or even every script I'm going to do has to do this? Don't set yourself a program or a limit. Who knows where you will be in 5 years? Work on the one you're working on now. Okay. Hi, T. Trent. Not too late. You're still doing good. Okay. So you have to make time and fall in love with it. That is very, very true, FAA. That is a very good way to put it. You have to, you do have to make time. You have to not wait for it to come to you. You have to make it. You have to say, I am going to find a structure within my reality that I can carve out this piece where I can do it. And then you have to do that enough to fall in love with it, to say, it's 3:00. I just got back from work and I am going to do my time now. And once you've done that a bunch, find a way to really enjoy it. That is very good. Definitely relate. What's helped me the most the last few years has been stepping back and reflecting over my life, the ups and downs, and how you're going to write something that goes deep to people if you haven't explored the depth in yourself. Yes, as long as your exploration of yourself is feeding into some practical creative project. Not to say that exploring yourself and thinking about your life is not valuable unto itself, but in terms of writing advice, since I am not just giving psychological advice here, whatever that stuff that you are sourcing in your own life should be feeding into some creative project. Okay. Hi, She Breathes Gold. Look at that. Feel free to ask some questions, She Breathes. I think the most annoying thing is that when I write in the university, what do you write? Well, Arfang, don't know what to say. Different people have different issues at different times. I would say don't worry too much about what people are asking you. Write what you are doing and don't think about what other people are going to ask about it. Deadlines work for me. Leftover from Ad PR Career. Yes, even if I have to make up a fake deadline. That is an interesting thing. I know a lot of people who do that. That's sort of like setting your clock ahead so that you're not late for things. For me, the problem is I'm always aware that I played with the rules. So therefore, if I set my clock off, I'm just going to do the mental math and end up doing the real time. Likewise, if I have a made up deadline that I have made up, I know I can change it. So then it's not a deadline. I do have to tell myself to work towards this goal. And I do set myself deadlines, but deep inside my mind, I'm thinking, ooh, you know what? That deadline doesn't work because I have a party to go to. Oops, that deadline gets moved. But if it works for you, good. Okay. All that jazz. Life is like being on a high wire. No, the art is like being on the high wire. The rest is waiting. Yes, exactly. That is true. Okay, so that's what I had to say. This is just the thing I wanted to say is don't discount the difficulty of figuring out your process. That is the main thing I wanted to say, is that if you are having a problem with your writing work, don't kid yourself that, as soon as you'll be able to do it, and the problem is that you have a job or whatever it is. You have to make your process fit within that reality, and you have to make that process fit within your reality, which is, if you say, I think it would be better to write all night because I happen to be free all night, but you're not built that way, you're going to cause yourself harm. You're going to do unproductive work because you're trying to work in a way that doesn't suit you. And that's the main thing I just wanted to say, was that so much of writing advice is about getting the thing a certain way, getting your dialogue flashier or your scenes, your sentences shorter or whatever. But the process by which you get to that often is so hard that you don't get to that problem. That's it. That was my main message here. Open to questions. AMA, ask me anything if you would like to. That is what I am here for the rest of the next 34 minutes or so. Feel free to ask a question, or I will just I'll sign off and have some free time to fix my the type color, because I keep forgetting to do that. Any questions? As far as deadlines go, deadlines are great if you learn. One of the things about deadlines is learning how to sort of backdate to plan for it. Okay, if something is due at a certain time and it requires steps A, B, and C, you have to make sure that you start early enough to get A, B, and C done. Even if you don't do the competition, you've done the work. That is true. That is good insight. Thank you, Ricky. Yes. No questions? Anything. Ask me anything. The hardest part is letting go. That is true. The hardest part is saying I have done enough, or that is all I can do today. Sometimes it's like, I only have an hour. I'm working on my lunch hour. And to say, I have to stop now and go back to work. The more that you can work with accepting the reality of your work process, whatever it is, whatever the world is forcing upon you, it is better to accept it and work within it than to damage yourself in the hour you get. If all you get is an hour a day, don't spend that hour being pissed off at how you don't have 2 hours. Spend that hour getting the work done and accepting tomorrow is another day. Okay. Trent says, I have more ideas and structure things with more ease when I'm under pressure. Yeah. There is a thing that social scientists call flow, which is there is a certain amount of pressure, competition, pushing that is productive. And then when there's too much, it becomes unproductive. If there's not enough, you're unproductive. There's this area where there's enough pressure, but not too much, but not too little. That is what they call flow. There's actually a book from the 1980s, I think, which analyzes this, probably in too much detail, because the basic idea is pretty clear. There is a sweet spot, and you know it when you're in it. And one of the things that I'm trying to talk about is becoming aware of when you're in it and saying, well, what about what I'm doing is getting that? For instance, for me, there are certain things, having familiar documents, opening the document and getting into it, asking questions, they tend to make my flow most productive. So the answer is yes, pressure is not inherently bad. Too much pressure, or the wrong kind of pressure, is a problem. Madco, how vague should a log line be? That's a good question. Here's my thoughts on a log line. A log line is a 1 or 2 sentence description of a project. And the thing I think about logline is you need to make sure that you make clear who it's about, and you need to make sure that you identify the genre. That's usually a good idea. And you need to make sure that you have presented the main problem of the story. In other words, they want to rob a bank. They want to run a bank, but they're ghosts. Usually there's 2 levels to that. There's a thing that someone wants or is faced with, which would cause them to want something. To me, I always put it in terms of want, but you say there's a guy who's got his leg trapped in a hole in the ground, and there's a flood coming. Okay, so you've got a situation, and then you've got something that is making it a story, a problem. You got to fix this. If you have a person in a genre with a situation or a problem or a goal, that's all you need for a logline. You do not want to tell the end in a logline. You want to set up the beginning of the story, enough of it so that people know what the real story is about, but not giving away stuff beyond. That's how vague it should be. If you are identifying who it's about, what kind of project it is, and what their main problem is, usually with some kind of hook or twist or additional element that makes it, ooh, that's interesting. For instance, they want this person to fall in love with them, but they're in rival clans. There's usually 2 parts to the situation. Does that help, Madco? Arfung has a problem with writing arguing because in reality you never argue. Well, I'll tell you, I think creative writing is where you get to do all those things that in reality you don't do. I am not personally particularly violent, but I love writing action violent scenes. I think you get to play out things that you don't want to experience in real life. When you finish your novel, do you plan to write a screenplay for it? Do you plan what's next? That's two good questions. Two good questions related to each other. The first one is, when I finish the novel, I will probably not write a screenplay unless someone pays me to. Especially because I think it would be best as a series, and I'm not going to write a series if somebody doesn't pay me. Also, I have other things planned for next. So the answer is, do I plan for next? Yes. I have learned not to over-plan, because I used to plan like 6 steps down, like, I'll write this one, and this one, and this one. My life expectancy has gotten shorter than when I used to do that, so I just plan for the next few years. And right now the plan is within the next year to get this novel written. That already is ambitious. It will probably take a while to get it published or to self-publish it. When I am done with it, I will decide my next step. I have several other projects that I have begun in previous years. One of them will be the next one, but what I'm planning to do is decide then which one to do. So the answer is yes, I always have options for what's next. Sometimes I have the very next thing planned. At this particular moment in my life, I have the exact plan of the one I'm doing, and I plan to decide then what to do next. How do you tell the difference between experiencing writer's block versus procrastination? That's an interesting puzzle. Okay, because they're sort of not versus. It's not sort of writer's block and procrastination are kind of 2 faces of the same demon. Writer's block is some form of emotional or psychological problem which is stopping you from writing. Procrastination is the act of doing something instead of what you want to do. So procrastination can be part of writer's block. You can procrastinate because you have writer's block. Procrastination is an act. It's a thing you do. Writer's block is a thing that happens to you or a state in which you are in. As far as what writer's block is, that depends on the person. It's sort of a vague term for an experience of, I want to do the thing, but I can't do a thing. But exactly why, different from person to person. For instance, for some people, they have writer's block because they are hearing in their head a critical voice from outside. And that's then the solution to that writer's block is going to be recognizing that that voice probably has no power over you, that it may even be imaginary, and that you have to figure out your relationship to that voice and figure out how to get it out of there. But sometimes the writer's block is because you are afraid of making choices. Or sometimes writer's block is because you've chosen to do something that's too hard for you. That happens a lot to me. I will imagine a project that I can see doing, but the steps to getting it done are all unfamiliar. Like if I decided right now I wanted to write a graphic novel and I wanted to illustrate it myself, learning how to illustrate it myself is a big, big task requiring many steps. Learning how to do the graphic novel form is another big task. So I've set myself too many things I don't know how to do, and that can become paralyzing. That would cause me to have writer's block about that thing. So what you want to do is say, okay, I'm going to learn how to illustrate and draw, and then I will take on this big project with my illustration. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Yes, yeah, no, it is that would also help, but the color helps too. A technical question: how do I write characters inside voice? Do you mean like literally format? Usually you would do it as voiceover, which is in the here. Let me show you. Let me show you a bit. Hold on, this will take a second because I have to open up screenwriting software. Okay. Hang on. I haven't opened up this software in a long time. Okay. Okay. For some reason, yeah, you guys should not see that. My final draft is coming out upside down. Okay, I'm not going to be able to show you this right now. I have to update my final draft before I can show you this. I will show you this way. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look here. So we have character VO, and then hey, gosh, I really can't stand my math teacher. Okay, so there we go. So that's one way you can do it, this VO, voice over, and then whatever they say is in a voiceover. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is this way. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so Jerry looks around the party. Hell, I can beat these guys at poker. So in that case, the other thing you can do is you can put it in italics. Oh, this doesn't have italics. Hang on. Helvetica. There we go. alphabetica. Okay. So the other thing you can do is you can put in italics in the description what the person is thinking. That's a little less accepted, but it is a way to do it. So these are the two ways that you can do a character thinking a thought in a script. Okay. Gene. Eye surgery forced me not to read screens or even books. I couldn't use dictation. Now I write longhand in sketches and hope to put it together when I can see. I am sorry about that, but yes, interestingly, being forced to change your format, for instance, being forced to dictate or being forced to write longhand can actually change your creative spirit process in a cool way. And that's not a bad thing. Okay. Sorry, Arfang, it's too many questions. Let's do that. Let's do that another time. Let me get other people. Do you need someone to push you? My wife does this if nothing is done around the house. That is a legitimate question. Would it be helpful to have someone who's like, hey, did you do your writing today? No, not for me. It creates a resistance to doing it because I'm pissed off at having somebody over my shoulder questioning my decisions. So no, that's the accountability is not good for me. I have worked with people as a coach where I've been like, hey, did you write today? Or just to say, I'll be there every day for you to check in when you write. Whatever it is, that is a thing. That is a thing that some people need. For me, it is better not to have that, but I can see it being useful. Anyway. My wisdom is invaluable. Thank you. FEA just says, I just started writing a book. I'm doing 5 pages a day. And so by the end of December, you'll have 155 pages. That's dynamite. That is great. I am actually I have a hard time setting myself those limits or goals. I am getting to the point sometime in the next couple of months when I will actually be writing those pages for my novel. And I'll be talking about that. I'll be doing some live streams about it. Right now, I'm just doing the outline. And my goal is open up the damn outline and wherever I left off, start going through it scene by scene and see how many scenes I can get done. Some days it's a lot, some days it's just one. Usually what happens is I go for a while, I sort of rev up, I get some really good stuff, and I begin to feel my brain burning out. I know that whatever I write next is going to be kind of half-assed. So I stop. I've learned to stop. I used to keep writing in that half-assed way, and that was always bad. So I had to learn when I felt that burnout. Now, often that burnout, I stop, I go read a book for half an hour, and then I can come back and do more, and it's fresh. That's for me. But I also do know that there are times, especially if you do have a deadline, where you'll say okay, I've got to get 5 pages done every day. What I tend to do is I'll do I didn't get my 5 pages done. What am I going to do? I couldn't do it, but I got one really good page. The next day I may get 9. I am unstable. You are welcome. Okay. Angela says, I'm still struggling making writing decisions. I tend to write alternative drafts because I return often to previous ideas to plug in later or get unstuck. Advice for neatly organizing alternative dialogue scenes without complicating your drafts or creating. Okay, here's my advice. First of all, watch this video. Instinct. I will put a link in the description later, so you can come back in about 10 minutes after I'm done with the video. With this live stream, it will be a link down at the bottom of this video. But the main thing is that talks about the fact that just making decisions, making a choice is artistically the thing you want to do. Saying to yourself, it's okay not to make a choice, after a while becomes self-harming. What I would suggest, though, because it is frightening and you can't be sure, is if you have alternatives, just make a folder. Alternatives, alt scenes. And then if you write an alternative scene, make a separate document with just that alt, like alt scene 57. You copy that, put the alt in the folder. What's going to happen in my experience is as you make those decisions, things start to coalesce. They start to become clearer, and you don't mind losing the alts. I have piles of alts that I look at and I'm like, yeah, that's clearly not what I wanted to do. Now and then, an alt will be better. Most of the time, that decision you make points everything in another direction, and it's the right thing. It's the answer. Because there isn't a good or bad. There isn't a right or wrong. The answer is by making the choice of those things specifically to say, in this dialogue, the person is making more jokes. And in this one, they're making less jokes. At the moment you make that decision, calculate it. Say, is the rest of the script very jokey? Do I need this as a break from the jokiness? Do I need this from a break from the serious? For whatever reason you're making that decision, that making the decision is part of the big picture, and you're committing to it. And only when you commit to it can you write the whole thing. So the answer I would say is, if you find yourself having too many possibilities, force yourself to make the choice. Seriously, don't make it arbitrarily unless you really have to. But most of the time, there will be a reason why you make a choice. And that reason is good. Take the time to make it for a good reason. Like in the script, the novel that I'm writing right now, I've got a lot of scenes where it's like, well, where is this going to take place, or how is it going to happen? Like, I know that someone has to confess something. Where are they going to confess it? And then the answer is, I have to think. The first thing to do is make a list of choices. Don't just have unlimited choices. Make a list. I have 4 choices. Of those 4, 1 or 2 will probably drop out immediately because it's like, well, that's really cool, but it's going to contradict other things. Or you get your 3 or 4 choices, and one of them will have a reason that you're like, I'm going to choose this because it's the same location as XYZ, or it's the same way of talking as this, or it's a different one. Whatever the reason is, among those 3 or 4 choices, you will have a good reason to knock most of them out. Even though they're good, the reason, that's the guiding principle of your script. That reason, that center of the choice, that belief that, well, as much as that's interesting or cool, this story has this tone, or this story is heading towards this ending, and so it needs this motivating thing. Whatever it is, you will have a reason to make the choice if you narrow it down. I've got two options. I've got 3 options. One of them will survive the questions, and that's the one you do. The other ones, put in the alts. But I guarantee you, by the time you've read through your final draft, most of the alts will just be interesting possibilities that you're happy you didn't do. Does that make sense, Angeli? Okay. For Michael, writer's block is being overwhelmed, thinking too far ahead. Yes. That is often the case for writer's block. Very often you'll be like, I have a list of 60 scenes I have to write. I can't even think, I can't face 60 scenes. Oh, wait, I actually only have to write 1. A lot of this comes to, you're only writing one thing at a time. This video also gets into this in great detail, in which I talk about having writer's block for like a couple of years, okay? Years. And about how I dealt with that. And one of the main things is to say, I'm just going to make this choice at this moment and be in this scene with this character. When you do that, a lot of the other things fall away. Okay. Regarding my novel, why did you choose the Depression era? You're young. What really did? Well, because I have a fondness for that era, because when I grew up in the 1960s and 70s, it wasn't that long ago, and it was the middle of the century. The Depression and the war, and to a certain extent the 50s, were very present. Like that was what nostalgia was. And the world, the movies that I was watching, the books I was reading were from those eras. So it was very formational to me. It was part of my childhood. Even though my childhood wasn't in the Depression, the visions of the Depression were very present in the old movies I watched and things like that. But the main reason is because that's when this thing happened. There was a moment in 1935 when the federal government opened this painting program called an arts program called the WPA, Federal Arts Program. And that was the trigger for the story. In other words, the whole story depends on this character trying to scam the federal arts program. And because of that, he falls in love with this painter's girlfriend. Without the WPA, it doesn't happen. The WPA was only existed from 1935 to 1939. So there you go. Okay. Do you have any tips for combined genres to deliver something unexpected? Yes, I do. I have 2 tips, and they can contradict. Okay. Tip number 1, it's great. If you can mix and match and blend and mess with genres, it tends to make for great, exciting stuff. And I wish people did more of it. But business-wise, it is a challenge. There are some people in the industry, publishing or production, that are excited by something that breaks or bends genres. Most of them aren't, because it is easier to sell a product within a genre. It's easier to sell a horror movie because you say, we're going to put the trailer in front of other horror movies and we're going to sell it to this audience using these obvious tropes. The business likes genres that stick within genres. All the good work in the world comes from messing with that. So my tip is, do it boldly and excitedly and have fun with it. The only thing is you need to know your genres that you're combining, and you need to make choices and say, from your instincts, what do I think would be cool about my romantic comedy Western, which, by the way, would be a great idea. So the answer is mess with genres by being really knowledgeable about the genre and then following your feelings. If you have the instinct to mess with them, do it. But do recognize that a good 75% of the business is thinking, I don't know, that's hard to sell. But the other ones are going to get it. And that's, to me, worth doing. Never thought of procrastination as a thing you do. Yeah. Yeah. No, procrastination is the active choosing to do something other than the thing you're trying to do. and you'll stop procrastinating once you recognize that and stop doing it. I noticed Knives Out sort of did that with a whodunit versus a whydunit. I would say that Knives Out doesn't really, that's pretty solidly in the genre. Even though it simply was taking a genre that had been somewhat neglected and jumping in feet first. But I wouldn't say that Knives Out really is actually, it's playing within the genre. But it's the adventurous thing with Knives Out was that it was a genre that was currently not in fashion. And once he did it, it became in fashion. I mean that more structurally. Like, how do combining genres could help you subvert expectations on the primary genre? No, that's okay. I get it. As far as separate comments and even just the complexity of the question. Here's the deal. Within any genre, there are going to be expectations. That's what genre is. Genre is a set of expectations. that is the actual, like, you should watch my my video on genre, by the way. I did a whole video on genre. But the point of genre is that it is a set of expectations. There's a tradition, a history in which in film noir, people are committing crimes and betraying each other, and sex is dangerous. Those are the things within it. So the question is, what you want to do is say, which elements, expected elements, am I keeping, and which ones am I messing with? And choose them, saying like, I'm going to do a horror movie, but it's going to have a romantic comedy storyline. Within all the expectations of genre, I'm actually going to do a romantic comedy. Choose what you're doing and what you're not doing. Or to say, I'm going to do a mystery, but it's existential and no one ever finds out anything. So that you're taking the genre, but then you're saying, what am I going to do with the fact that this expectation of the genre that it will be solved is not going to be paid off? And how do I work that into the character's story? That making sense, She Breathes In? Let me know. Okay, no more questions. Do you know Avatar: The Last Airbender? Yes. Well, yes. I love the series. Marvelous. The live action movie, I don't like it. But the series, the 3 seasons, it was like 3 seasons, right? Of Cartoon Network animated. It's frankly brilliant. It's wonderful. In your opinion, is it a good source of reference and inspiration? Yes. It's really great because it's episodic, like there's little bits of stories within a larger arc. So that's a good thing that you can learn from it. Then also just the ways that the characters develop and are revealed, and it's great. Use it as inspiration and reference. Absolutely. I love it. I think it's great. Okay. Anderson tapes, one of my favorite movies, and DOA were made up of flashbacks. Scene heading was titled Flashback. I don't know if they were, but they should be. Yes, because it's tricky. DOA, the entire movie is a flashback. So it's really a frame story. And you would probably only do the first one. Like you'd say like present day. And then you'd say 24 hours earlier. And then you'd leave it at that. And by the time you get back at the end, you'd say, we have now caught up to the opening scene. Does that make sense? As far as Anderson tapes, while there's flashes in both directions, but those should be marked, yes. Yes, thank you. Sonia is recommending for Arfang. If you watch my step-by-step videos, of which there are 200 hours of watching me format a script, writing a script, that will honestly give you a lot of the answers. But the main thing about format is I beg you to watch this video. It's about 45 minutes, I think. Script format made easy. That tells you everything I can think of about format. Alts, use the snapshot function in Scrivener. That's it. If you are working in Scrivener, there's a lot of things you can do to compare alts. But I would still suggest, if you are doing alts, make a choice, set the others aside. Don't throw them out, don't lose them, but put them out of sight. Make your choices when you have alts, and then keep the alts for another time. And I think you'll be surprised how much the answers become clear in the process of making the choice. Cool. Yeah. Choices, making choices. It's hard, and it's the main thing. Don't be afraid to make choices. And the thing to do to not be afraid of making choices, because the big fear, there's 2 fears about making a choice. The first fear is I'm making the wrong choice. Only one way to find out is to make the choice you like and make it as good as you can and see how it works out. There's no way, you cannot determine the results of your art. You cannot determine the responses to your work. You may be making a choice that doesn't work out as well as you thought. That's art. So getting over the possibility that you're making the bad choice, you're making the choice you want to make. Make the choice you believe in and commit to it. And then if it turns out it was bad, next time you won't make it. But there's no way to know until you make it and commit to it and finish it. You can't, no one can know. Even, people can tell you that'll never work, and they could be wrong. So that's fear one, is I'm making the wrong choice. I think fear two is, if I make this choice, I lose my other possibilities. And the answer to that is yes. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. Everything is a choice, and every choice has a price. And one of the main ways to make a choice is to think about the prices you will pay. If I make this choice, that character will never get married. If I make this choice, that character will not be as funny as they could have been. Whatever that price, you say, can I live with that price? Or if I don't, and I do the other choice, what's that price? You weigh the prices of your choices, and eventually you have to make one. And when you make one, I would suggest, just that you don't fear, I've tossed that away and I might want it later, save it. Save a copy. Don't save a copy of the whole thing, just save a copy of the alts, and label them, and you can always look at them later. Okay. Hello, Donna. It's okay. You are welcome. Absolutely. Okay. The Cosmos. What's the best way to find the series of events that makes up your premise? This is an interesting question. This is a big question. Some premises are easy to turn into events. Solving a murder, the beginning and the end. But others you don't. This is a biggie. Think in scenes. Please watch this video. And this one. Oh, there we go. Think in scenes and dramatic action. Those two videos that are in my playlist answer a lot of that. The answer is you gotta. Oh, you know what else? This one. Use what you have. Okay. Think in scenes, dramatic action, and use what you have. Those videos get into great detail with practical steps and things for taking vague ideas and making them into script units. Dramatic action, scenes, script units, things that happen. The answer is you start by grabbing onto a piece and thinking about who's doing what. And it's just that simple. Who's doing what? In your premise, whatever your premise is, there's got to be a who somewhere there. Somebody's got to be a character, and they've got to be doing something. And when you ask those questions, you should come into it. All the videos that I'm mentioning, in the description on this video page, there's a description. And if you open it up in about 10 minutes after I finished talking, I will have posted these links so that you can see these videos. What genre is my novel? It's a historical romantic triangle. Okay, no more questions. Have you ever seen toxic advice given by screenwriting? Yeah, I have. How harmful? This is a painful question. I really make an effort not to trash other teachers. I think it's a cheap trick that people do of making themselves seem important by taking away others, hurting others. The answer is, even the worst, most toxic, horrible screenwriting teacher will have valuable things in their teaching. Okay. Here's a video about that. Screenwriting rules. Wow, I'm referring to a lot here today. Screenwriting, any advice, any artistic advice, there is not an actual right or wrong. You have to decide what's right or wrong for you. If you have some toxic teacher who's telling you, you're an idiot and you have to do it this way, just get through the class, try to do what they want because it's their class, and your obligation in any school or class is to do the thing that that school or class is asking you to do for the time you are in it. As soon as you walk out, you are free to say, screw that, I'm never doing that again. But while you're doing it, do the best you can with what they're asking you to do. Otherwise, there's no point in being there. But if the teacher, the toxic is when they say you're bad, okay? The answer is you're not, okay? You could not possibly be bad. All you could be is bad to their set of values. But your set of values may be different. So all you have to do is say, I need to survive their set of values, and I might as well explore it, experiment in it, do my best to do this thing I think is bad. That is a good lesson. That is a good, even the worst teacher will teach you the valuable lesson of learning how to A, do what is asked for you even if you don't like it, which is what a professional screenwriter has to do, or that you learn to be good at a thing that you don't respect much, but that just gives you some skills, you know, it just gives you some abilities that you can say, yeah, I know how to write, you know, iambic pentameter. I'm never going to do it again, but I have that skill now. Cool. Do the best you can with what they're doing. As far as, you know, how harmful can it be? It can't be harmful unless for some reason the writer thinks more of the teacher than they think of themselves. And you should never do that. Never think more of any critic or advisor or mentor or teacher or model. You know, your favorite writer, you shouldn't think more of them than you do of yourself. You're the best writer you know, okay? You are the best writer you are going to be. You just have to be, you have to be in love with your work. Even if it's not going to sell a lot, or it's not going to be as famous as Shakespeare, that's okay. None of us are, okay? So you'd better find a way to like what you do. The only way to be an artist is to like what you do. And when you like what you do, if some teacher tells you it's bad, forget it when you're done with the class. Okay. All right. What tips to make a story fresh? Say you write draft 1, it's good, the story's out there, but it feels very plain. You want to take your story. I did a whole live stream on this topic. Look through my live streams. I think you'll find in the AMAs, the yellow thumbnails, in among there. But the answer is basically kind of look at this one, rewriting. The answer is identify what you like, and then identify what isn't as good as that. And then take the stuff that isn't good as that, figure out why it's not as good, because it'll be different for everybody. I can't give you shorter sentences. Some people write already short sentences, and you need to give longer sentences. There isn't a single thing that makes something fresh. What makes it fresh is you looking at it and saying, this is the good stuff, this is the not good stuff. The not good stuff, why specifically is it not as good? How can I make it better? Then you do that. Okay, no more questions, gonna stop. You are very, very welcome, very, very welcome. This is too big a question for now, but I will answer it at another time. I will save this one. That will be a good one. Okay. In the meantime, I hope that you all can get out there and go write something.